Hi everyone, Ryan here from Fight Game Analysis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming fight between Vasyl Lomachenko and Masayoshi Nakatani. But before we jump into that, if you've been enjoying the content, please go ahead and click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate your support. Alright, so we got a good fight coming up this Saturday between Lomachenko and Nakatani. It's one that I'm looking forward to, particularly because I want to see how Lomachenko is going to look after coming off of that loss from Teofimo Lopez, and I know Nakatani always shows up to fight. He's always going to bring it. So he's going to force Lomachenko to either show up or get steamrolled. Now, speaking of Lomachenko, I'm a big fan of his. Been watching him ever since the amateurs. Two-time gold medalist, multiple-time world champion. Now, when I think about Lomachenko, the first fight that comes to my mind is actually his second pro fight against Orlando Salido. And a few things stood out to me about that fight. Number one was actually that he lost the fight. At that point in his career, I kind of looked at Salido as a journeyman. He had some great fights in the past, particularly those ones against Vasyl Lopez. But at that point, I looked at him as a journeyman. Good fighter, rough and tumble, professional, comes to the game, but ultimately just not world class, not a champion. So with all the high hopes that I had for Lomachenko, with everything that I had watched and heard about him, I was a little bit surprised that he lost. That's number one. But then there was more than that. The second thing that I noticed about him was how his cardio stood up. I mean, anytime you see a guy who spends so much time in the amateurs and it's only his second pro fight, you worry about his cardio. I mean, that was a hard, grueling 12-round fight. Usually when you see guys come out of the amateurs, they're fighting 4-rounders, 6-rounders, 8-rounders, 10-rounders. Like, there's a buildup before they get to these championship level fights of 12 rounds. That's a lot of cardio. Lomachenko came out and did it right away, and in his second pro fight, had a rough and tumble, grueling fight with Salido. Cardio stood up fine. So that stood out to me. And the other thing was, as I mentioned, Salido was a rough and tumble customer. So he's got all of the veteran tricks. He's coming in with his head, he's holding, he's leaning and grabbing, he's hitting you on the hip, on the side, on the opposite side of where the referee is, low blows, hip shots on the belt line all night. Lomachenko didn't blink once. Didn't complain one time. Just took it all in stride. And I thought that was a great thing. And then he comes back after that fight and obviously puts on a stellar career up until this point. Right? Just awesome. Up until the point that he lost that fight against Lopez, there was a lot of people who had him at the top of their pound-for-pound list. Now, particularly looking at his skills in the ring. What I like about him is just how much of a purist he is, how much he's just a technician, and everything that he does at a super high level. But if I had to take two words to define his style, timing and footwork. His footwork is impeccable. What he's really trying to do when he's out there is hit and not get hit. And it's a footwork that allows him to do that. Allows him to get where he wants to either get out of the way or to get into a spot to land a shot on his guy. He comes out early in the fight, and he's going to be at that distance. He's on the outside, and he's an extra step away. So he's out of harm's way. His opponent wants to get to him. He's going to have to take that extra step before he can land that punch. And Lomachenko's out there, and he's moving around. He's using lateral movement, using a lot of head movement, a lot of feints, coming in, throwing little touch jab punches here and there, all just trying to read his opponent, trying to get the timing, trying to get the speed, trying to figure it out exactly what it is that's going on. And then after a round or two, maybe the start of the third round, that's when all of a sudden he starts to get everything, and he starts to get the rhythm, starts to get the speed, starts to understand where his opponent's at. And that's where the other part of his game comes in, the timing. And then once he gets the timing, he just starts to crank the pressure up, and everything just starts to move forward. Right? Then he starts to come forward himself, starts to apply that consistent pressure. Starts to walk his opponent down. Now he's throwing more shots. He's getting in his body shots. He's understanding where to counter because he's got the timing. And then he works those beautiful angles. Once he really gets that timing down, that's when he comes in and he takes those nice deep angles, starts to get his opponent spinning, lands, gets all the way to the side of his opponent, starts to turn him. He's able to land that left hand. I mean, it's really beautiful stuff the way he works those angles. And that's all about the footwork and the timing. He's able to get underneath shots. And it's all tailored to his opponents. It's not like he comes out there with a one-size-fits-all game plan. You look at what he did against Jorge Linares. It takes a little bit more time. Jorge Linares has got really good combinations, fast hands, big, tall, strong for the division, right? He's not able to come out there and just immediately break him down. But he starts to land those body shots, starts to get the angles. And by the end, he slipped once, right? And Linares hurt him. But towards the end, he's eventually able to get him out of there. And then you look at when he's against a guy who's much less credentialed, brings much less to the table, like Anthony Crolla. Man, he's able to just steamroll through, dude. No big deal at all. Doesn't take him too long to download all the data, figure everything that's going on. But he's just a master technician when he comes out there. He just brings so much to the table. He's a lot for anybody to deal with. Obviously, we saw Teofimo Lopez beat him in the last fight. He brought his A game to the table, and he looked awesome in that victory. But that's what it took to beat somebody like Lomachenko. Then on the other side of the ring, standing across from him, we've got Nakatani. Now, I'm a Nakatani fan. I liked what he did against Teofimo Lopez. He shows up tall, long for the division, fights like it. He's got really long reach, fights with a really long jab, fights with a really straight right hand that he likes to bring in. You know, he likes to press behind him. We saw against Lopez that he's landing the jab, and then once he starts to land it, he starts to move forward. He's able to get his left foot in between Lopez's left feet, right? He's got that good, he closed the gap. Then he's able to start getting the left hook off. Good power, hits hard, always shows up and brings it. You know, Nakatani is a good guy in the division. That being said, he's got some flaws in his game. Particularly, he comes in and he keeps his chin up, man. And that's a bad one. Not everybody's always going to be able to take advantage of it, but it's a big flaw. It's always there. A lot of times he was able to hide it with his offense. He comes in, again, he's got that reach. He's tall, he's long. It's hard for guys to reach his chin, particularly when he's coming with the straight punches, and he's got good power. I think going into that fight, that's what Lopez saw. I think Lopez saw that, yeah, Nakatani's got the reach and everything, but he keeps his chin up. And if he keeps his chin up, I'm going to be able to tag him with one of these counter right hands, come over the top of that jab, and really turn his lights out. And obviously that turned out to be a little bit more difficult than he thought, because Nakatani brings a lot to the table. But the question is, what's it going to look like when these two step in the ring with each other on Saturday night? I think this is going to be a perfect example of why fighting math doesn't add up. And what I mean by that is Nakatani gave Teofimo Lopez everything he could handle. Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Nakatani is going to be able to do anything against Lomachenko. And in this one, I really don't think he is. And the reason for that is styles make fights. Going with Lomachenko in this one all day. I think the reason that let's not forget, Nakatani, his first fight over here from Japan was against Teofimo Lopez. I mean, people knew about him, but he came into that fight as a pretty big underdog. Lopez was the guy with all the hype behind him. That was really a big fight where Nakatani made his name as a fighter over here in the States, introduced himself to the American fans. And then he's only had one fight since then. That was against Verdejo. Got the stoppage win in that one, right? So that was really the introduction. But I think that was a big thing, was that style matchup. Lopez likes to come out. He fights flat-footed. He likes to fight behind that Philly shell. He keeps his left hand down. He's fighting with that shoulder roll. Nakatani has a really good jab, and he's taller than Lopez. That style was tailor-made to give Teofimo Lopez trouble, and that's exactly what it did. I don't think that that's going to be the same story against Lomachenko. I don't think a guy who keeps his chin in the air, who has a reach advantage and fights behind a good jab and that good long jab and a good straight right hand, is going to be able to give Lomachenko problems. I think Lomachenko is going to be able to figure out that timing and that speed. I mean, Nakatani's got quick hands, but not fast enough. He's going to be able to figure out that timing. He's going to be able to figure out that speed, and he's going to be able to start going to the body. All those feints and that head movement is going to throw Nakatani off. Lomachenko's going to be able to start to cut those angles. And when Nakatani starts to turn, he's going to keep his chin up, and Lomachenko's going to crack him with that left hand. I don't know. Lomachenko, he's moved up in weight a lot. He doesn't carry a tremendous amount of power at 135 pounds. I don't know how tough Nakatani is, whether or not Lomachenko will be able to get him out of there, or whether this is going to go the distance. Not really sure about that one, but I'm pretty sure that Lomachenko is going to be cracking him with some good shots throughout this fight, as long as it lasts, even if it's through the 12th round. I think there's going to be a lot of openings with the way that Nakatani keeps his chin up. Especially once Lomachenko starts going to the body, maybe Nakatani's going to bring his hands down to try to cover up for that and present even more opportunities. But what he brings to the table is good. But again, styles make fights, and I think this one's going to be tailor-made for Lomachenko. I also think he's going to come out and feel like he's got something to prove after that loss to Teofimo Lopez. So I think this is going to be a big win for Lomachenko. I think it's going to be putting his name back out there after that loss. Let me know what you guys think. Is that going to be the case? What's he going to push for after this one? Is he going to try to get the winner of Lopez Kambosos when that fight happens in August? Or is this just going to be 2 losses in a row for him, and it's going to really be where Nakatani sets his name on the stage. Let me know what you guys think.